home in Birmingham, just 3 months after the conviction of her former physics teacher, Neil Richards, on charges of sexual activity with a child. It was revealed during the trial that in addition to having sex with the 15-year-old on multiple occasions, Richards had been sending her up to 12 messages a day via text and on social media websites. The couple continued to write letters to each other even after he had been arrested. "Caroline Lovell," Claire says, turning to the woman in the blue dress. "Your organisation, Mothers of the Innocent, has been one of the loudest voices calling for increased regulation. What exactly do you want to see happen?" As if she runs purely off the energy of live television, Caroline springs to life, all lassitude gone. "What we don't want to see," she says, "are any more cases like the tragic case of Beverly Parker, a young girl taken advantage of systematically by her teacher over a number of months, a shocking sequence of events, which has now ended with young Beverly taking her own life. What we are proposing is that schools insist on all contact between teachers and pupils taking place through school systems only, where it can be properly tracked. That isn't the case already. No, it's not clearly enough. Everyone agrees that social media contact with pupils isn't a good idea, but teachers are simply trusted to use their own judgment. What we want to see, and what we believe the British public would like to see, are much clearer boundaries about what's appropriate, so that everyone knows right from wrong." "But Richards did know it was wrong," Claire says, glancing at her notes. "He admitted as much in court, so how would that—" "Boundaries don't exist simply for criminals. They exist for victims too. They help victims know what's happening is unacceptable. We want all pupils to be aware social media is off limits. When I talk to people about this, most of them can't believe the law hasn't already taken a firmer stance." "Rob Dowling," Claire says, "is Caroline Lovell right? Does the British Teaching Association agree that we need more regulation?" Rob is already nodding. "The issues Caroline's raising are very important, and of course we must do everything we can to ensure that teachers do know the boundaries, that they respect the boundaries, especially on social media. You should be doing that already," Caroline says. "Well, if you just listen—" "I am listening." "You'll know that is what we're doing, and we won't stop looking for ways to improve teacher training, but the fact is, not enough care is taken to make sure girls like Beverly aren't exploited." "Let me assure you," Rob says, flushing, "a great deal of care is taken. The vast majority of teachers are decent people, responsible, caring people who absolutely know the difference between right and wrong and are doing their best to deal with it, not just the dangers, but also the opportunities new technology has created. Educators cannot be held solely responsible for these kinds—" "Who else do we blame? The pupils?" "Absolutely not, but there are other factors in play." "Such as what?" asks Claire. "We all know," Rob says, turning gratefully towards her, "that teachers are chronically overworked and underpaid. What we need are more realistic workloads that would ensure all pupils receive the right kind of attention. The answer isn't to force more regulation on teachers, to give them yet another thing to feel anxious about, but instead to trust teachers to—" "Trust them?" Caroline says. "I'm sorry, but Neil Richards was trusted, and look what he did with that. Trust is the problem here. You have to recognise the special position you occupy and accept that there simply has to be a greater burden of accountability because of— But that doesn't benefit the pupils. It would have benefited Beverly Parker. It would have benefited Beverly's parents, who were grieving the loss of their daughter, and are actually now pressing for manslaughter charges against Neil Richards. That's how completely they feel he betrayed the trust placed in him." This is what pundits require, Claire thinks. Absolute belief in whatever they are saying, even from a standing start. The marvellous capacity to self-convince. No one masters such a role cynically, despite what people think. Cynicism can be pried up around the edges. Only the faithful endure. "And what about parents?" she asks. "Since you've raised them, where do they come in?" "Claire," says Caroline, swivelling towards her.